On this episode of Lapeef, Let's Talk.
This other culture based on your proximity. So it makes sense to me. And those times make the most sense to me. You know what I'm saying?
What's your culture? Can you describe your culture for me so I can better understand it? Can you describe your culture that you own so I can better understand what's not mine and what's yours?
No, I'm speaking in terms of white people. You said white people versus black people is what I'm
saying. I use an example to try to figure out whether or not it was based off of what you look like or based off of your life experiences. So I'm trying to understand what is your culture, since you said that's not their culture. What's yours? Can you give me some insight?
I believe that your culture is I mean, you don't get to choose it. It's based on who you are. Regardless if you practice what's within it or not. Like, you can just because, okay, you can be Asian and from Thailand or whatever, and you can go to a white school and listen to rock music and blah, blah, blah. That doesn't make you less Asian.
And that you're going to get exposed to different women. And that's what happens. The only thing on Bankhead is Jazzy Tees. That's it. Best strip club in the world. That's it.
All right, y'all want to get to Kayla before you guys finish the conversation. Kayla, why do we care if people date outside their race?
I've been thinking about it. I don't really know why I know why other people care. I'll just start with my perspective. I don't personally care. I'm pro-Black. I'm going to procreate Black, and there's nothing around that. But I do think that the only issue that I take when people date outside of their race is when they don't require or care if that person embraces or respects the culture that they are intermingling into. And I live in Miami, so a lot of that happens here. And I just don't understand how you want to be with someone that wants you, but wants nothing to do and doesn't respect your culture and your people. And, that just doesn't make sense to me. I have no idea why you want to be with that person. And then the other thing that I wanted to say was that I think with people dating outside of their race, I genuinely think that these preferences, like people say, oh, they have preferences, whatever. I believe that majority of preferences are programming of some sort, whether it was through your family, whether it was what's on television, what we see every day. I think that a good portion of preferences that people quote unquote have is really programming of some sort. So that says a lot for why people date outside of their race. But I genuinely think majority of the time people want to be around people that look like them. So,
is your
it's
culture
a percentage, and people bring up a lot, Black men dating outside of their race, blah, blah, blah. But it's like 87% of Black men marry Black women. So it's a small percentage of that happening. So, but it's so focused because that's it, like, something that Mr. Pookie was getting to, saying that, like, it does seem that when certain resources are attained and those people are in the public eye, we see that more. But for the average everyday person, Black women are married. Most Black men are married to Black women. So it's really not a big thing. But again, it's the programming. I've never seen, the Cheerios commercials, really, they're getting out of control. Like, seriously, like every single commercial I see, it is an ambiguous looking child and parents of different cultures. So it's become a big part of the programming in the last 10 years. And that number at 87% probably was higher. I don't know for a fact, but just per my assumption, probably was higher prior to that programming. So yeah, that's pretty much what I think so far.
So let's just say, for example, I'm a Black guy and I'm raised in the suburbs and I always went to white schools like my nephews have. And I was never raised in a hood. They listen to rock and roll and they marry a white girl. Is your culture still based off of what you look like, or is it based off of where you were raised and how you understand the world? Kayla.
I think she might have froze.
Or anybody for that matter, because she said based off of, she's purely basing off of what you look like. And so is your culture based off of what it is that you look like, or is it based off of your experiences in life growing up?
It's based on your experiences growing up. And maybe because I say this because growing up in the islands, you'll see people of different shades. You'll see white people, dark skin, Spanish people. So we're not gonna judge a white person and be like, oh yeah, they're strictly white. Their culture, they're gonna have Crucian culture in them. So it's not basically what they look on the outside. I wouldn't judge, oh, that white person is strictly white or that black person is this. No, it's not. I don't believe that. I don't know what I was confused in kind of what she was saying a little
Well,
bit.
that would just completely debunk everything that she just said.
No, because the thing that we're having with this conversation, and Q, I hear you, because I've been to Jamaica and I know that the owner of Sandals is not black. He's not Jamaican. He's Dutch, right? But his children and he himself and so on and so forth, they speak patois and they're accepted because it's one blood, right? That's what they believe, one blood in Jamaica.
But she said she had a problem with
let me
B,
finish,
and
Anton.
C
I
based
got you.
off
I got
of
you,
how
bro.
somebody wouldn't
you.
respect what what the
All right,
culture
bro.
is of the person that they married. And so what I'm asking is,
Sorry, you were
specifically,
lagging, so I didn't get it. Can you repeat the question?
I said, what if a person that was black, like my nephews, were born in an environment where they weren't raised around majority black people, but they were raised around majority white people, and they listen to rock and roll, and the only thing that they've ever known is culturally something that's different from what you may have experienced growing up from a cultural perspective, right? And how it is that you align yourself, and then they wind up marrying a white girl. Is the culture by which they subject themselves to based off of what they look like, or is it based off of their life's experiences?
It's in tandem, I believe. And proximity has a big part to do with it as well, because if that is all that is around you, then that makes sense. Like if there's literally only you and 3 black girls that go to your school, like you can't just get with one of them because there's only 3 black girls at the school. You know what I'm saying? Like, but as far as like culturally, it's programming. You being in that white environment, that's not your culture. That's not your environment. You listening to their music, that's not your music. That's not your culture. You're being programmed because you're being placed into this other culture based on your proximity. So it makes sense to me. And those times make the most sense to me. You know what I'm saying?
What's your culture? Can you describe your culture for me so
My
I can better
brother,
understand it? Can you describe your culture that you own so I can better understand what's not mine and what's yours?
No, I'm speaking in terms of white people. You said white people versus black people is what I'm
I
saying.
use an example to try to figure out whether or not it was based off of what you look like or based off of your life experiences. So I'm trying to understand, what is your culture, since you said that's not their culture. What's yours? Can you give me some insight?
I believe that your culture is I mean, you don't get to choose it. It's based on who you are. Regardless if you practice what's within it or not. Like you can just because, okay, you can be Asian and from Thailand or whatever, and you can go to a white school and listen to rock music and blah, blah, blah. That doesn't make you less Asian.